Welcome to another famous author writing routine, and today we are going to be trying to spend our writing day like Holly Black would. So if you don't know who Holly Black is, I bet you actually do, because she was part of the amazing Spiderwick Chronicles back in the day that got turned into a movie, and she's also gained even more popularity with her Folk of the Air series in more recent years, and the first book is The Cruel Prince. So she has always been really in that like fae, fairy, sometimes venturing into like vampire part of fantasy. And one of her books that I still love and will reread to this day is Tithe, which was actually, I think, her first book published. So I was really excited to learn what her process is and what she did to even write these books. And honestly, I was super surprised by what I found, because even though she is this super best-selling, well-known author, she really does have to work at her writing. And a lot of the things that she does are to just try and motivate herself to get to the end of the book. While some other authors have specific times of day that they like to work or specific hours that they force themselves to work in, I didn't see anything specific for her. So today, instead of having like a start and stop time that's a little bit more strict, we are going with a different strategy. Because if there's one thing that's unique about how Holly Black writes, it's her collaboration with her writing group. So she has a really well-known relationship with Cassandra Clare, who wrote The Mortal Instruments, as well as some other authors. And in the past, she's gone on writing retreats with them while completing her novels, or even just for a day, she'll go over to a friend's house and write with them. But she spends a lot of time talking through her stories with these friends. So since Holly Black is known to write anywhere and everywhere, I'm taking this opportunity to leave the house today and write in a new environment. And I'm going pretty low stakes with this. I'm going to be going to a coffee shop, but I really wanted to add that element of collaboration or working with someone. So I'm going to be bringing my fiance with me. He has been super supportive about everything I've ever written. He's read most of it. He'll give me his comments on what he thinks about it. But he's been really excited since I've started writing this fantasy book, because in the past I was writing more like thrillers, and he enjoyed those, but he's really into fantasy. So it's been really fun bouncing ideas off of him as I world build and outlined and plotted this fantasy book that I'm writing. And I even had the hope to use him to help develop further once I finished the first draft. And I hadn't quite figured out how I wanted to do that. So I figured today could also be a little bit of a trial run to kind of talk with him more as I'm working through the chapters, and maybe even see if he'll do some reading over what I've done and help me a little bit more hands-on today. We'll see how it goes, because Cassandra Clare and Holly Black have such a tight relationship. So they actually co-authored a series together called the Magisterium series, and they were literally writing one on top of another the entire time.
With Cassie, we're writing it together. We have a strange process by which I will write like 500 words or so, and then she will write over those words and edit them, and then she'll write 500 words or so, and I'll write over those, and to try and get one voice.
It's not going to be that intense for me, but I just want to see what feels good, especially having him beside me in the room as I'm writing. So without further ado, I think it's time I headed out for a coffee shop. We're almost at the cafe, so I figured I'd set a little bit more of a framework of what today is going to look like. So she has no specific start and stop time. So I'm going to be stopping when I've hit about like 1,000 words, maybe up to 2,000 words. Because for her, she said that she tries to aim for 1,000 a day to be kind of on track. So that's number one. And then number two, we're going to be using writing sprints. So she talks about using anywhere from 20-minute, 30-minute to 40-minute writing sprints, because she finds it really hard to just sit down and write for an entire day, which honestly, same. So by compartmentalizing it and saying, I just have to write for 40 minutes, it makes it a lot easier for her to focus on just writing for those 40 minutes. So we're gonna do writing sprints until we hit around 1,000 to 2,000 words. But before I start drafting new words, I'm gonna revisit a different scene that I need to flesh out and work on, because Holly Black does a lot of revising of previous chapters as she's working on new content. So we're almost there. Jonah, you excited to do some writing?
Oh yeah.
I would go away on retreats, and I love that you wake up in the story, you go to sleep in the story. I love that you have like people there that you can reach out to when you're stuck and like have conversations with. For a long time, we had like a miniature version of that in the sense that myself and Cassie and our friend Kelly Link would meet up at coffee shops and then at Cassie's house.
There are other moments of like fun and sleep earlier.
The fight happened after the outpost? At the outpost?
Yeah, it happens at Outpost. You come up with your plans and stuff. Like,
The plan of the university people?
yeah.
Maybe you should try and flesh out your plan right now. So it gives you, you can write it out somewhere. And it can give you more of a great structure of what their goals are and help you write.
So now some down my word count.
Yeah.
With Jonah's help, we quickly unraveled a lot of what I'd outlined for the plot, and there are definitely some things I'm gonna have to straighten out that could be major plot holes if I don't fix them. So it was a little bit nerve wracking to kind of see everything fall apart the way it did.
It didn't fall apart.
It did fall apart.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. But the plan is for this next writing sprint, I'm going to do 20 minutes this time instead of 30. So I'm not going to do any drafting. I'm just going to work on trying to figure out what's going on, which I feel like is very Holly Black coded because she has said numerous times that her first drafts often are very different from what the final draft ends up being. So oftentimes as she's writing a new chapter, she'll go back and change earlier chapters and rewrite them. And yes, I'm still in draft one, but I think to prevent myself from going too far off in the wrong direction, I need to take a little step back and try and figure out what's going on. It's mostly surrounding the motivations of some of the secondary characters because I feel pretty good about the main character, and it's really going to influence the midpoint, which is where I'm nearing. So also, we've come to a nearby library because the cafe was a little loud, so hopefully I can focus a little bit better here.
At a library, it honestly makes so much more sense.
My friend Tony DiDerlizzi was starting work on this illustrated guide to fairies. And I really wanted him to work on it. And I said, I've been working on Tithe, which is a fairy book. I'll write, the descriptions of these creatures. And our editor, Kevin Lewis, said, maybe you could tell the story of the guide. And, we were like, I guess. But, we went off and we talked about it together and plotted out the Spiderwick books. And they're very, very short chapter books. And I wrote them and Tony illustrated them. And that's how and then they wound up coming out before the guide. And, by the time the guide came out, people were like, oh, and also the guide. And we were like, no, this is the book we meant to be doing.
We got kicked out of that study area because they had a workshop going on that afternoon. But I got my 20 minutes of brainstorming done. We did a lot of chatting, and then I also just did like a brain dump in a Word document just to try and get everything in my head out on paper because I find that often helps a lot. So I'm ready to do my second writing sprint of actual writing today. I'm thinking of doing 40 minutes for the second one, clearing the 1,000 and calling it a day. Because even though I haven't done that much writing today, I do feel tired. I'm not usually one to go away from my own home when I write, just because being in a new space adds another thing to think about in my head. So I just find it easier to write at home where everything's a lot more controlled. I'm happy I gave it a shot today and decided to do something new. And Holly Black does write at home at times as well. So I think since the pandemic, she has written at home more than she has gone on writing retreats and things like that.
When we were forced, over the pandemic to sort of separate, I sort of tunneled back into my office and now I have a bigger office. And now I've been doing a lot of writing at home on a desktop alone.
So I'm going to set a 40-minute timer and I'm going to finish off this writing session strong.
The thing I start with a lot of times is a feeling, an emotional feeling. And sometimes with a picture that gives me an emotional feeling, but it's all in my mind. And then I try to find the story that gives me the feeling of the picture in my mind. What? This is a bad way to write. A lot of times what I used to do was try to write a perfect chapter and then extrapolate upon it. Now I try to make a plan and then I write that. But there's a point at which obviously I feel like emotionally it is like your arm is out of joint. Like you can tell it's wrong.
Yeah.
But you don't know why, but it's aesthetically wrong, it's emotionally wrong, and you have to find the events or description that make it emotionally right.
And that is a wrap on today's writing. We have hit 1,363 words, which doesn't really feel like a ton, but I think the key here is that Holly Black is doing this every day, or at least potentially Monday to Friday. So this is like supposed to be a very consistent, sustainable practice. So even though it doesn't feel like a crazy number, it's like this is just one day of the many days she spends during the year writing. I really enjoyed the mix of first drafting, but then also allowing myself to rewrite stuff, because I think since she keeps her goal low of how many words to write every day, it really gives you that flexibility of not needing to just draft a ton, but you can kind of think about it a lot more. You can work on what you're drafting a lot more. I'm still debating how much I like talking to people while first drafting, because I think during the plotting stages, when things are really like loose and up in the air and you're just coming up with stuff, like I like the feedback of talking to someone about it. But I feel like when I'm first drafting, I almost need to kind of be in my own zone and not get distracted by outside ideas and outside thoughts. But at the same time, the things that Jonah was bringing up, I think, are important to discuss. So maybe I'm just resistant to the idea of feedback and hearing that maybe my ideas aren't perfect on their own. But overall, I had a good writing day and I hope you enjoyed following along. So thank you for getting to the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next one.